And earlier today, Secret Service Director Kim Cheatle was grilled by both Democrats and Republicans during a heated House hearing just 9 days after the failed assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump. Take a look at some of the highlights.
The Secret Service has a zero-fail mission, but it failed on July 13th and in the days leading up to the rally. The Secret Service has thousands of employees and a significant budget, but it has now become the face of incompetence.
You know what it looks like, Director? It looks like you won't answer some pretty basic questions. It looks like you got a 9% raise and you cut corners when it came to protecting one of the most important individuals, most well-known individuals on the planet. A former president, likely the guy's going to be the next president. It looks like you guys were cutting corners. That's what it looks like to me. Is that true?
I am here today because I want to answer questions, but I also want to be cautious.
You might want to, but you haven't answered. I don't think you've answered one question from the chairman, the ranking member, or me.
So the idea that a report will be finalized in 60 days, let alone prior to any actionable decisions that would be made, is simply not acceptable. It has been 10 days since an assassination attempt on a former president of the United States, regardless of party. There need to be answers.
You stated earlier, Secret Service is not political. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Would you say leaking your opening statement to Punchbowl News, Politico's Playbook, and Washington Post several hours before you sent it to this committee as being political? Yes or no?
I have no idea how my statement got out.
Well, that's so.
You said there's going to be accountability. I understand you don't want to give us names. When you say that, are you telling the committee that once it's concluded, you're prepared to fire the people on the ground who made poor decisions that day?
I'm prepared to take the actions necessary.
No, that's nonsense, okay? Accountability, the failure was human. That doesn't mean they're bad people. It means they failed that day, and a former president was almost assassinated.
Now, following the hearing in a rare joint bipartisan move, House Oversight Committee ranking member Jamie Raskin, of all people, joining Chairman James Comer for calling for Cheatle's resignation. James Comer joins us now, along with House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan. Well, hell froze over. You and Jamie Raskin can barely agree on the time of day, so that's a sign of good things. You know, Congressman Comer, if there's a school shooting, usually within hours we have a profile of the person that is responsible. This is a failure of historic proportions. Donald Trump was nearly assassinated that day. And I heard her say, well, it was outside the perimeter. 130 yards away is not outside the perimeter. You define the perimeter as any range in which a primary, in this case President Trump, could be the victim of a shooting like this. I mean, I can't think of a bigger failure than this one. Why hasn't Joe Biden fired her?
Well, Joe Biden hasn't fired anyone. That's our frustration. No one's ever held accountable in the Biden administration, not for Afghanistan, not for the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Look, to say under oath that being 130 yards away from the highest point isn't in the range of the Secret Service protection of the leading candidate for president of the United States, not to mention the former president, that's unacceptable. That admission is unacceptable. No one who's a minimum wage security guard at a mall after closing hours would agree with that assessment. I mean, she has to go. She did not demonstrate today her ability to give the American people answers to what happened, much less confidence that it won't happen again. She did not demonstrate to me or anyone else that she has the ability to lead an organization with a $3.1 billion budget and over 8,000 employees. I mean, this was a 5-hour hearing where she literally didn't answer any questions, and for once, the House Oversight Committee had unanimous agreement. Every question by every single member of the committee on both sides of the aisle was a question I think every American would ask at the cafe or at church or at a ball game, and she failed to answer any questions. It was a disgrace, and she should resign. If she won't resign, then Biden should, for the first time, terminate someone. You know, Congressman Jim Jordan, you know I used to work in construction.
I fell off a roof 3 stories. I actually landed on my head and busted up my arm and my face, but it did knock some sense into me. I became a conservative, but not to crack jokes. This insanity of a sloped roof is ridiculous. That's not a sloped roof. I used to work on, pitch roofs like this, nearly vertical, for crying out loud. And so that's a big lie that she told. And if if they weren't gonna put agents on it, fine. How about put sniper eyes on it? Right. And how about instead of putting people inside, you surround the perimeter so a guy with a ladder and an AR-15 can't climb up the roof? That's not a difficult decision, Jim Jordan.
No, it's not. And, she didn't answer many questions, but even the ones she did, I don't know that we can believe her. Because remember what happened in the first 2 days after the assassination attempt on President Trump. The Secret Service said it was absolutely false that President Trump's detail asked for additional resources. And Secretary Mayorkas said it's unequivocally false that they asked for additional resources. But guess what happened, Sean? 5 days after that, the Secret Service said, well, there were actually some instances where we turned down the request that came from President Trump's detail. Well, that's a 180-degree change. So they told us something that was not true in the days right after this attack on the president and changed that story 5 days later. How can we believe anything this individual says? So that was, to me, the biggest takeaway is I don't trust what she says. And I think Jamie's right. I think the country sees what needs to happen here.
Okay, but I know for a fact that there's going to be a paper trail, and you went down this road really hard trying to get an answer. There's going to be a paper trail that shows that requests were made by the Trump team that were denied again and again. How do you justify that?
Yeah, I want to know how many times they asked for additional resources. I want to know how many of those happened after the Secret Service and our government was put on notice that Iran was trying to kill President Trump. I think those are pretty important questions, and she would not give us answers to those. So I think that is critical. I also want to know all the before questions. How in the heck was he not given the resources he needed? How in the heck were buildings? There's a finite number of buildings that needed to be secured. How come they weren't? It wasn't a huge number. 2, 3, 4 buildings had to be secured. And then I want to know what happened in that critical 5 minutes. 6:09, the shooter is identified as a bad guy. 6:10, the message is sent to the counter snipers. 6:11, the bad guy shoots President Trump and others. 6:12, the sniper takes out the bad guy. 6:14, the president is escorted off the stage by Secret Service. What happened in that 5 minutes, that critical 5 minutes? What happened second by second in there? That's what we need to know to figure out so that this does not happen again.
Well, and they identified a suspicious character, maybe a suspect, James Comer, and they still allowed President Trump to take the stage? Why would they allow that?
They shouldn't. I mean, no one would allow such a thing. Every former Secret Service agent that we've spoken to, every whistleblower that's come forward, every person involved in any type of security that I've spoken to in the past 9 days say this is unacceptable, this is common sense. Any mediocre Secret Service director would know better than to answer the questions they've answered. They made a huge mistake, but today she admitted the mistake, but she didn't instill confidence that this mistake won't repeat itself. And that's a problem. That's an issue of national security because there could be would-be assassins out there that might feel emboldened now that we have an incompetent Secret Service director, and that might lead them to do something horrible. We don't need that to happen. We need people to respect the Secret Service, to fear the Secret Service, and we need our president and our presidential candidates to have confidence that the Secret Service has got their back.
All right, Jim Jordan and James Comer, thank you both. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.